Management consulting, again, it's a very interesting area which is typically chosen by candidates. Again, management consulting is a role where there is no, of course, it's a completely different from regulations provisions that we discussed right now. But management consulting is something where you cannot have a set of rules, you cannot have a set of processes or something where that you tick mark A, B, C, D things and you are done. Management consulting actually involves you to apply your brains from a different lens, different perspectives, think through multiple thought processes and then come up with a solution. That's what management consulting actually looks like. Well, of course, it involves a base of finance. It's not that you're working without the domain of finance, but with domain of finance you are actually required to think a lot rather than just applying the rules of finance or the processes of finance. So that's why here what I've done is I've kept a day in life of a management consultant as to how a typical day looks like. So, in some cases, you are diagnosing as to why a client's margins are 8% below benchmark. Okay. So if you are working with a client in, say, D2C companies, okay. So let's say if the entire industry is working on a margin of, say, for example, 12%, then why are your client's margin are less than 8%? I mean, 8% below the industry benchmark. Now, it's not 12 minus 8, it's 8% of 12%. Okay. So let's say, for example, why is your client having a margin of only say 8% or 10% when the industry at 12%? So that's where industry benchmarking comes into picture. You build cost out models against OpEx and CapEx lines. So what is this? This is basically understanding the entire cost structure of the company from operating expenses point of view and capital expenses. So capex lines is basically a company where they have a lot of factories, a lot of machines, spare parts. So that's where you analyze what is the cost of capital expenditure that they are incurring, and at the same time what are their operating expenses. Operating expenses are basically the routine expenses like office expense, marketing, professional fees, then rent, etc. So there you have a detailed understanding of all the expenses, identify areas where their expenses are high against the industry benchmark, and come out with options as to how can you help in optimizing those expenses and reduce those expenses. Then you interview 20 business heads in a week to gather data, because in management consulting you are typically hired for solving a particular problem. It can be something like help us increase sales, help us reduce cost, help us market this particular product better, help us take this product into the market. Okay, so that's where you are in a position where you have to actually understand from the people of their business in terms of business heads, where you speak to those business heads, get the question, get answers to their questions, and then frame your thesis and then come up with a solution. Of course, after coming with a solution, you have to create a board ready PPT where you help the client understand that what work have you done and what are your recommendations to solve the problem. After you provide a recommendation, you have to track the implementation of cost saving initiatives or any other initiative that you have recommended and how are they actually faring in the market. You basically lead 3 to 5 client engagements per year across industries, because these management consulting engagements are mid to longer length. So it's not a 1 month 2 month assignment. Typical client engagements are always 3 to 6 months at minimum. So over a period of in a period of 1 year, you won't be dealing with 12 assignments. You will be dealing with 3 to 5 engagements, but the learning curve will be a lot steep. You will be learning a lot in a shorter time frame. Type of consulting roles, as I mentioned, Big Four advisory, you can have such kind of roles in Big Four, EY, Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, across process, risk or transformation. Then MBB, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, which are typically hardcore strategy projects. Even nowadays, a lot of boutique firms are coming up who are providing management consulting in specific sector like fintech or healthcare. Then, of course, you can always start independently. Here, why I have written CFO advisory work is because coming to that question of how can you differentiate, so if along with CFO, if you can provide management consulting, then it can turn out to be a huge differentiator. Because even in my case, in a lot of our clients, we do a lot of management consulting work, which gives a client an added advantage that they are not just finance advisors but business advisors as well. Skills, structured problem solving. As I mentioned, that you are solving a particular problem, so you need to understand the problem and structure it appropriately. Financial modeling, as usual, it will apply. Slide craft, basically MECE thinking. So what is MECE? It's mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive. It's a language in consulting where you come up with solutions which are so basically you're coming with 3 to 4 solutions which are exclusive to each other. There are no overlaps. At the same time, you ensure that okay, all the solutions are coming in this particular frame, so there is no solution that exists outside this frame. Client communication, because in these kind of roles you are always front facing, you are always dealing with the clients, asking them questions, addressing their questions. Industry research, because you are benchmarking against the industry, so you need to have depth and understanding of industry as well, which you do by researching that particular industry. MBA or CA preferred. Of course, CA is definitely preferred. CA is bare minimum. But in sometimes, in let's say if you are targeting something like McKinsey, BCG, or Bain, MBA can turn out to be a huge differentiator, and at the same time can give you a strong advantage with your CA. So that's with management consulting. And last, I have brought other roles, which I haven't discussed in detail, but are good roles. Treasury management, I think we discussed. I think I kept it separately. I don't know why. Investor relations, as I mentioned that in listed companies, especially, you are dealing with private investors, public investors, venture capitals, private equity players, HNIs, mutual funds, a lot of investors, right? So that's where you need to come out with your performance on quarterly basis, and you have to answer the questions of analysts, because analysts, especially from mutual funds and data research and investment banking, keep asking questions that why was the performance like this, what happened, what not, etc. So you have to come up with answers to those questions. That comes in investor relation. ESG and sustainability finance. This is a sector which is quite nascent as of now, but it's a sector where you can develop your expertise not just in India but at a global level, because the regulations are actually framed outside India first, and then some sort of regulations in ES and sustainability are applied in India by taking it from global level. Risk management also an important line, especially if you are dealing with finance in finance, as in the treasury or the money aspects a lot, where you basically identify risk in terms of how are you investing your money. This risk management profile is applicable much more importantly in rating agencies like CRISIL, ICRA, where you as a risk analyst identify or provide ratings to the companies basis their risk profile. So that's why risk management is important. Financial reporting, this is a typical role currently, as I mentioned, in the accounting especially, where you help companies in preparing financial statements, support their audits, and ensure that the financial statements are prepared in accordance with relevant norms, be it Ind AS, IFRS, etc. And finance business partner is somewhat typical to FP&A, but in larger companies, these business partners are dedicated to specific finance, dedicated to separate business function. For example, there will be a finance business partner specifically for sales. There will be FBP for marketing, FBP or supply chain. Why this happens? Because in larger companies, each of this business function has its own nuances or has its own complexities, and hence it becomes important for the finance business partner to have that specialty of understanding that specific business function, be it sales, marketing, or supply chain. Skills are as usual: influence, negotiation, communication, storytelling, and business intelligence like Power BI and Tableau. Skills and career comparison. This is basically a summary of what we have discussed. The career path, the technical skills required, the soft skills required, typical market entry, basically what kind of credentials you are required to have. The growth ceiling, basically what is the topmost level that you can reach in this particular career paths, and ultimately the work-life balance. So basically I've given ratings in terms of work-life balance as to how work-life balance looks like in all these career paths that we have discussed. So yeah, how to break in? Depending on what area you have, you first need to get certifications, be it CA, CFA, CPA, FRM, MBA. Then build skills, hard skills like Power BI, Python, some certificates, then Tableau, basically data analytics and Excel. Target right firms depending on your interest. Either it can be company, mid-sized firms, MBBs, for family offices, etc. Craft your story. It's important that you ensure that you are a value-driven partner. Okay, so here I have kept example that you don't say like I have prepared reports. What you did of that reports? So basically, you say that okay, I identified 2 crores of cost saving by analyzing these things, and this is the impact of that. So numbers matter in our business. Numbers actually matters that how much sales have you generated, how much cost have you saved, how much cost of capital have you come down, what is the how much have you able to raise money at a lower cost of capital, etc. So of course, as I mentioned, the best time to explore finance career beyond PE or IB is now, because a lot of careers are opening up in finance, and it's important to be a specialist who can do the work rather than a generalist who is having its exposure across multiple streams. Yeah, thank you. So this is from my end. Happy to take up any questions.
So right now for your company, when you look at candidates that apply for you, do you hire candidates by any chance?
Yes, of course, we do hire candidates.
So what do you look for in a candidate for like roles like FP&A or corporate finance? Because for me, when I think about, okay, so the domain that I'm in, equity, for me, I just need to have a good knowledge of how a stock is performing, how the company is, and have the relevant certification like CFA. And I know it's possibility of cracking the role opens up. But for a role like FP&A, say that I apply, so what is it that you like screen me on the basis of? And what is it that when you talk to me, you look for that's a mandatory to have?
So if you ask me specifically for FP&A specifically, I'll only look for two things. First is analysis, and second is storytelling. Okay, if you are able to analyze a company's financial performance and are able to understand the business of the company and help me, or basically help me understand that how is this company performing, not just from finance lens but also from a business lens, then definitely you are worth considerable. And at the same time, storytelling, because if you just give me numbers that, for example, sales increased by 20%, cost decreased by 10%, it won't be helpful to me. if you go an extra step and help me understand that why sales increased, why cost decreased, what happened, and how can we maintain this position on a sustainable basis, then it gives me leverage and it gives me an understanding that okay, this is how you are able to understand the business better. Okay, so strong analytics, strong storytelling skills, and of course hard skills in terms of Power BI and Excel. I mean that's given already. Yeah.
Okay, and how about corporate finance?
Corporate finance, of course, CFA is preferred, I would say. Okay, but let's say in some cases, even if you don't have a degree or a certification of CFA, but you have a strong command on financial management as a topic. Okay, cost of capital, WACC, your trading on equity, your analysis of debentures, bonds, etc. Then I think that will be much more important. But I'll tell you, in my chosen profession, we typically won't be looking for someone specifically for CopFin. Okay, because we are not a dedicated investment banking firm or something like that where we need a person specifically in the corporate finance role. Okay, FP&A is generally preferred by us because we deal with companies day in day out and on their business performance side. But while we do support in fundraising, but we are not an active investment banking firm. Okay, we don't do mandates, we don't do buy side, sell side advisory, etc. Okay, in some of our clients, while we do assist them in fundraise, debt raise, etc. But that's because the relationship that I have with the client. It's not because I am specifically having this investment banking department.